Welcome, Sara, to the Root of Our Health. It is so glad to have you on here. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Elizabeth.
Great. So I love to start these episodes with, I like to call it like a rapid fire 5. It's really 5 questions for my audience just to get to know you a little bit better. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Great. So the first question is, where did you grow up?
I grew up in rural Wisconsin.
Nice.
So essentially in not too far from Green Bay.
Okay. I used to live in Milwaukee, so I'm
Okay.
familiar with I know Green Bay is way north. So yeah. And where do you live now?
I live in Washington, D.C.
Beautiful.
So which is a big change from rural Wisconsin, obviously.
Huge. And how long have you lived there? That's not one of the questions, but how long?
I have lived here almost 20 years actually here in D.C.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, it's been a while. I could still consider myself a Wisconsinite, but DC is also my home away from home.
Got it. So who are your 2 top mentors?
So I would group the first into 2 people. So I would say both my parents have been great mentors. So they were both registered nurses. So they, kind of inspired me to really embrace health. I learned a lot about health. So from them, I spent a lot of time when I was younger in the community hospitals where they worked. So I went to Lynz class. I remember on an occasion with my dad, which was really interesting, me and, a whole bunch of pregnant couples. You don't find that very frequently. And so, yes, so they inspired my health pursuits. And then I would say my other mentor was my graduate advisor. So I went to graduate school at the University of Texas at Austin. And my graduate advisor, Tom Pullum, was a great inspiration. So he not only was an academic, but he was also involved in consulting quite a bit. And so it was with him that I first learned how to work with clients. And so I really think that experience helped mold me to help me really work with people to identify what they needed, like how to be of service to them. And so, he's a great mentor and still continues to be.
Wow. So you've had it all along in your life. It's just been for a long time. Nice. And what are you most passionate about? Which I think I know, but
that's probably pretty evident given the topic of our conversation today. But I am really passionate about sustainability, really passionate about health. So, and those passions are really dual. So they've been prevalent in my life throughout its course. And continue to be. And so that's why it's really exciting to do the coaching that I do now, which essentially combines the 2.
Nice. And we'll get into that obviously in just a few. But the last question I have is, what is your superpower?
I would say my secret power is my ability to listen. So I would say, listening is often an underlooked superpower. I don't think it's as appreciated as it could be. I think the ability to really step back from your own thoughts and hear what other people are saying, and to be able to capture that, and to be able, for our purposes as coaches, to kind of synthesize that and to help people interpret what they're saying as a listener is really a gift.
Yes, agree. Listening is definitely a true gift.
Yeah.
Say, 2 ears and 1 mouth for for a reason, but also listening and being kind of, being there with the person, being very observing and 100% of your time and of your ears to that person. So yeah, that's beautiful. Love it. So now let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
We got to get to know you a little bit, but let's start from, your background and why did you get into health coaching and what you're doing in sustainability?
Yeah, so I will go all the way back to my childhood. We'll start way back. So again, my parents were just a huge inspiration. So I grew up in rural Wisconsin, so on what was my dad's hobby farm. So he was a registered nurse as his profession, but he himself had grown up on a farm not too far from where we lived. And we had our own farm that was more farm to table. It wasn't a dairy farm, as you find lots of those in Wisconsin, but we had maybe a dozen cows and pigs. Um, and so as a result, my father really taught me a great respect for the environment. So, and he was a big believer in keeping it, healthy and pristine. And so he would pull off and pick up aluminum cans, that folks had thrown out their windows back in the day. I don't think, that type of litter happens as much now, but back when I was growing up, it was a little more prevalent. So so that was certainly important. And then my mom, so I was a chubby child. Growing up in Wisconsin, there's a lot of, good dairy foods to be eaten. And, it's cold. So sometimes it's a little bit hard to get out and run around and burn off those calories. So as a kid, I was chubby. And so my mom recognized this. And so she set up a plan. She's like, okay, well, Sarah, I know you want to get your ears pierced. Let's put together a plan to have you do sit-ups every day for the next 30 days. And, and then at the end of those 30 days, we can go get your ears pierced. And so that was really my first foray into action planning as a means of improving your health. And it made a very strong impression, obviously on me. So I still remember it to this day.
Yeah.
And so that was really meaningful. And so fast forward a little bit. So I went to undergrad. I went to grad school. And so through the course of my studies, I knew I didn't want to go into academia. I do have a PhD in sociology. But I knew I didn't want to go into academia. So I started coming up here to DC, which is how I ended up here, and doing internships and fellowships related to international health, which is what I had been working on in my graduate studies. And so when I finished my PhD, I went into management consulting in international health, but it was a public-private partnership. So I learned basically about a company's interests in the social good, so in being better social stewards, particularly in health, but that then extended into other facets of what became corporate responsibility. And so after several years at that management consulting firm, I decided to go off on my own and start my own firm in corporate responsibility and sustainability, which still exists to this day. So it's called Lynz Consulting. In case anyone's interested, you can look me up there. But so I did that for several years, and so I'm continuing to do that business consulting. But recently, particularly during the pandemic, I was feeling like I needed to do more. Like I can bring my knowledge in sustainability, in sustainable living, in being gentler to the environment, as well as being healthier. Because I will say too, through the course of these years, I've had my own health experiences, had my own trials and tribulations that I've had to get through. So I've learned a lot along the way. And basically, my sustainability and health coaching is a result of kind of this cumulative knowledge I've experienced that I'd like to be able to give back to my clients and help guide them and basically, move them along in their own health journeys. So and just in terms then of I guess of my certifications. So in becoming a health coach rather, I got certified as a health and a wellness coach. I also got certified as a life coach. I'm certified as a personal trainer, and I also have specializations in nutrition, which is a personal passion of mine, as well as active aging, because we're all aging, and it's really important to be able to understand how to keep fit and how to keep healthy as we age. So,
Wow. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah, so
stuff.
you have a whole gamut of like the whole range
Yeah, it's
of
definitely a
knowledge,
range.
because it is, you know, obviously we are a whole being, so we kind of have to know different aspects of our different, you know, lifestyles. So whether
Mhm.
it's, you know, like you said, fitness, personal training, nutrition, health, you know, mental, everything, you kind of have to dig in to all of those aspects, all of those lifestyle factors. So that's great. And
Yeah.
me being from Chicago, so we're Midwest ladies here.
Uh-huh.
I
Yes. I
completely
would.
know how it was growing up being the fat kid. So, but my
Yes.
mom didn't take it to that level that your mom did. So that in itself, I think, was a great stepping point for you
Mhm.
to kind of understand, you know, there are ways that we could, you know, shape our body, basically control. I don't say really control, because I think that's a word that is connotation can be bad.
Mm.
But kind of understanding our bodies, right? Understanding what living on a farm, you knew what was good, you know, you had it right there, as organic as possible. And then obviously, you know, because of the dairy and all of that, you it is what it is. But then
Yeah.
went back to, okay, I understand what my body can do now and
Uh-huh.
treat it better. So that was a great learning experience in your life. So
Yeah, it definitely was. And I think it helped that my mother also, after she finished, well, I should say, she never really finished her career in nursing. She became a professor of nursing. So you could definitely see her professorial skills at play when she's like, okay, let me teach you how to be better to your body. So I mean, which
Nice.
was brilliant. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been super helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, my
Yeah.
parents have been great role models.
Oh, good. That's very good. So, and then obviously it led you to what you're doing today, and corporate responsibility, I think is definitely needed.
Mhm.
You know, being in the corporate world, I haven't seen a lot of sustainability in the environment that I was in,
Mm.
unfortunately, which is part of the reason why I stepped out too, as well, I should say, just because understanding, especially in the apparel industry, it's not that sustainable. It's probably the opposite. But in any
Yeah.
case, I think in more cases than anything, we need to have more, you know, corporate responsibility out there. And thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's very true. And I mean, industries like the fashion industry are certainly making more efforts than they used to, which is
Now
good to
they,
see. Like
yeah,
fast fashion certainly doesn't help, but it's yeah, they're coming along, which is
yeah,
encouraging.
there are some, and I made sure that I kind of now am shopping at those sustainable, you know, companies, those apparel
Mhm.
companies. So in any
Yeah.
case, we'll move on. Um, you know, I've talked to a lot of health coaches, you know, me being one, but also have interviewed a lot of health coaches, but I have not really talked to one that focuses on sustainability.
Mm.
So why a sustainable, I mean, I know you touched on this, but I don't know if you want to go into a little bit deeper of why be a sustainable coach?
Right. Yeah, we are a pretty rare breed, I would say. I don't think there are a lot of us out there, and I don't think there are a lot of us who combine health with sustainability. Although
Mhm.
it's relatively, I think they go in hand in hand when you think about it.
Yeah.
I think for the sustainable living, it's uh, doing what I've done with my business consulting. I realized just the importance of being able to give back to the planet in a good way, to be a friend rather than a foe, essentially. And people are busy in their days. It's hard to prioritize, like going to the grocery store and getting your kids fed, let alone like thinking about sustainable living. But for those people who want to make an effort or who want to think about it a little more seriously, I felt like there was a gap there that needed to be filled. And so, and given my knowledge and the information that I can bring, I felt that it would be just really beneficial to be able to share that with others and help them think through, I mean, how they can live more sustainable lives. And in actuality, like the steps you have to take aren't really that hard, some of which you might be taking already. I mean, there's a whole like plethora of things you can actually do. And so my purpose as a sustainable living coach is to help people think through that realm of possibilities. And the interesting thing is about sustainability in general, and particularly sustainable living, is it goes by a lot of names. So it goes by eco-friendly living, or environmentally friendly living, or net zero living, or you could even talk about minimalism as sustainable living. And so I think it's really hard for people to wrap their head around like this term when there are so many terms associated with it. And so I'm kind of here to bring it all together and to, kind of make it a little more cohesive. And I can talk a little bit too about the specific, I guess, services that I provide to my clients around sustainable living. If you want,
yes, please do. That'd be great information to share. Yes.
Yeah. Well, good. So basically, I divide my sustainable living coaching into 3 buckets. So the first is around your household habits. So that is, how do you use energy and water? Like, what type of energy are you using? Are you using renewable energy, or are you using energy from coal-fired power plants? What type of cleaning products do you use in terms of toxins? Certainly we talk about that, both in terms of health of the planet as well as your own personal health. There are things like food waste that fall under household habits, like how do you dispose of your food? Are you able to compost it? Do you just put it down to disposal? How do you cook? In that regard, landscaping, kind of your daily living. So that's the household habits. The second group that I touch upon is your personal lifestyle. So that encompasses topics like your buying habits, like who do you buy from? Do you kind of adhere to corporate responsibility? Do you buy from companies that are, support the environment and support their employees, or do you not? Is that not important to you? So things like your clothing are certainly kind of come up in that realm. And then we talk about within the bucket of your personal lifestyle, like things like commuting, the type of car you use, your hobbies, your leisure travel. And then the final bucket is I suppose 2 topics actually. So one is climate change planning. So for those people who are really concerned about what the environment's going to look like, I mean, whether it's the droughts out west, I mean, the fact they're not getting a whole lot of rain there, the rain not be coming in the future, like what do you do then? Like, how do you plan for that? I mean, do you continue to live out there? Do you need to move elsewhere where maybe there will be more rainfall, so you don't have to be concerned about, your house being engulfed by fire every year? So those are the types of discussions we have on climate change planning. And then there's socially responsible investing. And here I will preface that I am not a financial planner.
Mm-hmm.
I do not give financial advice, but we do talk generally about, because there is investing now that you can do around social responsibility. And so it's more a conversation about, are these topics interesting to my clients, and how can they maybe use their investments to empower themselves and the environment in some way. So that's really what I touch upon with my clients when we talk about the sustainable living coaching.
Nice. And I mean, I love it because it's, like I said, it's like an all-encompassing, right? You're not just in one bucket. Let's see, let's pull another one from another bucket, kind of how can we be more sustainable in all areas of our life, right? So you kind of touch on all of that. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, when they come to you, is it just sustainability issues, or is it that they come to you with health issues and then you offer some sustainability solutions? How does that happen? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. So the way I've grouped it on my website, at least, they're 2 separate pages, but really they're intertwined. and they certainly can be with my clients. So with my health and wellness coaching, the way I incorporate sustainability is that it's easiest to talk about it in terms of three things, which I touch upon on my website. And these three things are your diet and nutrition. So certainly in the foods you eat, where you buy them from, are they organic? Do they, are you eating, I guess, red meats or versus like poultry or fish? So things like beef and lamb. I grew up in the Midwest, so we consumed a lot of beef back in the day. But in terms of sustainability, it's not ideal. So we could all do with cutting back on beef a little bit. So we talk about things like that. And then the second grouping is basically their personal care and their household. So in terms of environmental toxins, like what you're putting on your skin, like your shampoo, your cosmetics, your creams, I don't know, your shaving cream, whatever that looks like in terms of your personal care. And then in terms of the household products you use to clean, so your kitchen, your floors, I don't know, waxing your car, what types of toxins do those have? Because I think you and I both know as health coaches, those play a huge role, just as much as your diet, in fact, in terms of how it affects your health. And oftentimes I think it's really tough for people to wrap their head around. They're like, well, yeah, I use this cosmetic I got from the corner drugstore, but you have to stand back and ask, well, what types of ingredients are these? There are ingredients that, have been known to potentially cause cancer or, increase your chances of obesity. We just need to take a step back and think a little bit about what you're putting on your body, not just in your body. And so that's I think an interesting exercise with my clients. And then finally, so the third grouping with my health and wellness coaching, related to the sustainability, is the exercise and fitness. So I would say with that, certainly I love to help folks get fit. I myself have, it's ingrained in me. I've done it long enough now. I really enjoy it. I definitely see the benefits. And in terms of sustainability, certainly there are ways that you can exercise sustainably. So joining a gym, although nowadays with COVID, you want to be a little cautious there, but anything where you're lessening your environmental footprint, essentially. So those are the topics that I cover under my health and wellness in relation to sustainable living. However, I will preface that by saying that as a health and wellness coach, and you know this very well, Elizabeth, too, we're trained on a whole range of health conditions that we can discuss with our clients and that we can cover. So oftentimes, I'll be covering their own health conditions or their sleep patterns or their stress or, the relationship issues they're having, because they're all intertwined oftentimes. Right. So, and you can't really get to your clients' health goals until you surpass some of the issues they may be having in different aspects of their lives. Right. So that's how the two are linked.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's kind of like getting to the root cause, because really what they come to you with is a symptom, right? It's not generally the cause of what's going on in their life. So a lot of times what I'm sure you and I do is what is causing this symptom. And a lot of times it is the toxicity and the things that play in their environmental world, whether it's personal, physical or whatnot. Yeah. So it is, and I'm right there with you in terms of what we put on our bodies and surround our bodies too, what we could lessen our toxicity load, right? It's not like, unfortunately, environmentally out in the air, we can't control that. We can control what we yeah, if we know, say for example, if we know that their air quality is not the best out there right now, we can control and like staying inside or something like that.
Mhm.
However, a lot of times like all of the air quality, everything else, like even the 5G towers now,
Mm.
that
Yeah,
in
they go
itself,
up.
it's like it's understanding, well, where do I live, and is it possible, if it's a very toxic environment, like physically, and well, I don't want to say emotionally, but just like physically, can I remove myself out of these toxic either relationships, toxic environment, all of this. So it is understanding what is, and I'm going to use it again, toxic in our lives, and
Mhm.
that's removing all of these, comorbidities, like these cancers and the endocrine disruptors, all of that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you play a great role in doing that, because I think more, I mean, we do touch on it, but we don't focus on,
Yeah.
the sustainability part. So I think
Mhm.
having a sustainable coach is definitely very, very needed in people's lives. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I absolutely agree. I'm a little biased,
Of
obviously, but I
course, of
do
course you are.
agree.
Go ahead.
But I did want to add too. I mean, I know you mentioned certainly air quality, and that is one thing I do touch upon with my clients. Also, is their home environment, and
Right,
to the extent that I can. So
right.
certainly, I mean, whether they've gotten, say, the lead or their water quality measured, or if they determine their air quality, or if they're near a Superfund site, or whatever that looks like. I mean, to the extent that they can control some of those things, or at least be knowledgeable about them, and their like home and surrounding environment. I mean, we certainly discuss that.
Yeah. Now, is it ever too late? Is it ever too late to be sustainable? Because my audience tend to be on the older, over 40 and midlife, but is it ever too late to
Absolutely not.
okay. All right.
No, it's never too late. No, but I would say that the sooner the better. I
Mhm.
think maybe you heard, or maybe some of your listeners have heard. So, I mean, I will preface this by saying, we're taping in August, but 2 weeks ago, in mid-August, the UN, an intergovernmental panel on climate change, released a huge report. That was authored by over like 200 um, researchers from like 60 or more countries around the world, and included something outrageous like 14,000 citations of research within this report. It's insanely comprehensive. But their findings are not that encouraging. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest here. So basically, climate change and the warming of the planet is accelerating, and they're pretty concerned about the consequences of that. So they basically said that we need to limit the warming of the planet to 1.5 degrees Celsius in the next 2 decades, and take immediate steps to start that. Otherwise, if we get beyond that 1.5 degrees Celsius, the climate changes that may occur and the warming of the planet may be irreversible. So then we're stuck with things like extreme weather events and shifts in weather patterns and the droughts and the crazy hurricanes and the flooding like they had in Tennessee, I mean, this past week. So, I mean, so there are a lot of things that we need to be really concerned about. So I will say, yes, there are certainly, any time is a good time to start, but now would be a great time to start. So,
And you mentioned a lot of things, right? A lot of things to change, and we need
mhm,
to definitely make this change now.
yeah.
What is the first step? Because I'm sure everybody is listening. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to dump everything out and buy everything new, and move away, and cut my friends off because they're toxic.
I would
What?
hope not.
No, I'm just insane. Like, what is that first step that somebody can take? At least like that one small step that somebody can take that's not overwhelming.
Right. So I would say one, so let me say this first. So typically with my clients, it's all about their motivation, right? And again, this, Elizabeth, having worked with clients yourself, like you can't force someone to change. And so it's really about identifying what your client is interested in and what their goals are, and then working from there. So typically that's the process I undertake when I work with my clients. I sit down and I say, okay, hey, this is the realm of possibilities, kind of like we talked about previously. Like, what's interesting to you? Do you come in with interests already, like things you want to focus on to be more sustainable or to be healthier, if we're talking about their health?
Yeah.
And then put together that plan. So that way they have the buy-in, they're interested in executing that plan. So it's more likely to happen. And so that's the process I typically undergo with my clients. So,
got it. Yeah.
But I will say then though, so in terms of like being more sustainable and taking steps to be better to the environment and reducing the effects of climate change, one of the most important things you can do is lessening how much greenhouse gases that you put into the environment. And that's basically through the two top or maybe three top ways that we as individuals like contribute to climate change are basically through our use of energy. So that is, do you use renewable energies? Like your electric company, and I think nowadays a lot of electricity companies have these opportunities where you can basically get energy, renewable energy through them. So even though they might be coal-based or whatever other type of greenhouse gas-based energy that they emit, switch to renewable energy in whatever way you can. And so that also includes your car, so which is probably the second way that you can be better to the environment. So if you can buy an electric vehicle or even a hybrid, if you haven't already, like those are super ways to help reduce your carbon footprint, so the amount of greenhouse gases that you're emitting. And then the third thing I would say is lessening and minimizing the amount of beef and lamb that you eat. So beef and lamb in particular are really tough because as animals, cows and sheep, they burp and fart a lot. So, and this releases methane into the atmosphere. And you wouldn't think that all of these cows and sheep burping and farting would make a whole lot of difference, but it does. It really does. And so because we're a lot of beef eaters here, and there are many more beef eaters in the world than there used to be, this is becoming a pretty big issue. So those are my top three.
Does it matter what type of beef, meaning grass-fed versus conventional?
Well, I would say I would always opt for organic beef. I mean, grass-fed if I could, because I think that grass-fed beef is a little bit better to the environment. I would have to verify that. But in terms of the amount of methane they actually produce, I think it comes through the feed. But yes, I would always advocate for, if you are going to eat beef, eat organic, but minimize any amount of beef that you eat at the end of the day.
Got it. Perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you for that explanation.
Oh, sure. Yes. Yeah.
So where can people find you? Because you're giving all of these great tips, the service that you're offering. Where can people reach out to you and find you for your service?
Yeah. So I have a website. It's Saz, S-A-Z, healthyliving.com. So Saz comes from my first name and then the last initial, or I should say the first initial of my last name. So Saz, sazhealthyliving.com. I've got a blog there where I talk about a lot of these things. So put out some tips that you can all use and incorporate into your daily lives. Hopefully that will be of assistance. I also have a Twitter account. So my Twitter handle is Saz, that's SAZ_Lynz, Lynz. So that's the names of my coaching business and then my business consulting business together. So you can find me there also.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very great. So I'm going to put all of this in the show notes, so my listeners can just click on it and they'll go straight to you. And yeah, they'll go to you to get your services and see what you're up to. Yeah.
All right, great. Yes.
So before I get to the last question, I want to acknowledge you, Sara. Again, I think what you're doing and what you're offering in terms of not just individual sustainability, but also corporate sustainability in general, I think sustainable information needs to be out there a little bit more and widely out there. I try to do as much as I can, but I know that you are offering a lot more deep dive information on not only sustainable living, but how to implement it in everyday life, right? So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing that, from showing up and giving these services for a healthy lifestyle, because again, it encompasses everything. It's not just what we eat. It's not just what we, exercise. It is our life and our lifestyle. So I want to acknowledge you for putting all of that knowledge out there and helping others see the light for that.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So yes, and it's great being on your show to share this with your listeners and others who might come across your podcast.
Yeah, thank you. And then the last question I have is, can you leave us with a favorite quote or any words of inspiration?
Yeah, I would say, and based on the conversation we had, I just wanted to reiterate that it's never too late to start, just in terms of living a more sustainable life, in terms of being healthier. And so the thing is, and maybe this is to the detriment of my own coaching or coaches in general, but all the information that I help my clients through is on the internet, as is all of the health information I think that we as health coaches provide. It's all out there. The problem is it's all scattered. Sometimes you don't know what's accurate. Sometimes it's just hard to interpret. And so I think our job as coaches is really to help people talk through, kind of wade through all of the noise, so to speak, and be able to focus on reliable sources that are most helpful to them. And I wanted to say too that it's just it's really interesting to me as a coach that it's not just about prescribing. We are not doctors or health practitioners in that regard. We're guides. So in terms of coaching, we are there to guide people and help them on their journeys. And so I just wanted to say that I just enjoy the journey and hope that what I provide can help people live more sustainable, healthier lives.
Yes. I think we all, as health coaches, are doing what we can to help others live as healthy as possible, right?
Yeah.
So you're doing that as well. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Sara, for being on here. It was such a pleasure to listen to your knowledge and all of your good work that you're putting out there. So I want to say thanks again. And I also want to say to my listeners, until next time, you are worth it.